to drive higher, and the banks are not prepared for double-digit unemployment. So that's going to be an issue for them that doesn't go away for the next year and a half.
Some sobering comments from financial analyst Meredith Whitney yesterday on Squawka, giving us her thoughts on where unemployment could be headed over the next 4 or 5 years as the president and the current administration prepare to move forward with major health care overhauls. Some key Republican leaders are warning against a slide into national socialism. Joining us this morning is the chairman of the steering committee and author of Saving Freedom. Senator Jim DeMint joins us this morning from the nation's capital. Senator, good to have you on the program.
Well, good morning. If anyone wanted to know what centrally planned, politically managed economics looked like, you can see it now in this administration.
I can see that's the take you're using in this new book called Saving Freedom. We can stop America's slide into socialism. You say that Americans have an abusive marriage with the federal government and they want out. What do you mean by that?
Well, this is not a partisan bashing of the federal government. It's just pointing out that Americans have become increasingly dependent on the government. And as we do, the government grows and continues to spend and borrow, and it's basically pushing out our prosperous economic system. And we see this in the jobs report, in the economic report. And I've been meeting with business leaders over the last couple of days, and they're just pulling their hair out at the policies right now that are making it almost impossible for them to grow and create jobs.
When you say Americans are having issues with the government and the way they are, I guess, extending this social net, what do you say to those who have been out of work for, at this point, the median length of unemployment is 18 weeks. It's the longest since records started to be kept in the 1940s. They like, I would imagine, and enjoy having jobless benefits. Those come from the government.
Yeah, well, we should have those, and that's a temporary dependency on government, but it's something we pay for. I was a small businessman for years, and I paid a ton of money for unemployment insurance and never used it. That's not an example of socialism.
It's not.
What is when the government owns and controls a large part of our economic system, when they own our largest auto companies and insurance companies, they own our banks, they control our education system, they've almost taken over all of our healthcare system. You can just go down a pretty long list now that the federal government is in partial or complete control of, and the only word for that is socialism. Some folks think that's too strong a word, but it matches the definition that's always been used for socialism.
Are you recommending in the book that Americans instigate some kind of revolution of some kind?
No, I'm advocating that they get more informed, that they understand the difference between policies that lead to more freedom and policies that lead to more dependency. It's just time for Americans to become better educated, more informed, more engaged in their government, because this country is our people, it's not our government, and the people are responsible for what goes on here in Washington. And Saving Freedom just gives them an action plan on what they can do at the local level or federal level to begin to turn this thing around. I think we're in the 11th hour. I'm afraid that this new majority and this new administration is about to push us off the cliff, but they're not the only ones responsible. If you look at the book, you'll see that I criticize Republicans about as much as I do Democrats.
Senator Steve Forbes here, good to see you. One critical area, of course, is health care. Quickly give us, we don't have a real free market health care system. What are several things that should be done to get real free markets in health care, get controls, prices under control, get real productivity that we see elsewhere in the economy?
If we allow health care to work more like a part of our free economy, we'll see the costs go down, and more importantly, we'll see people healthier. The part of healthcare that works the best now is when people have their own health insurance and can make their own decisions with their doctors. The part that's not working is the government part. Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE. Now, some of the people who get those benefits think it's working, but it's creating trillions of dollars of debt, and it's shifting the cost over to the private sector. You know, my plan for health care is just to be fair to people who don't get their insurance at work. And we can give every family in America $5,000 a year to buy health insurance, and we can pay for it by just taking back the TARP money as it comes in and spending it on health care. rather than spending it on some new government program.
And what about some reforms like allowing consumers to shop across state lines in buying health insurance? What are some of the other things that should be done to get real free markets in health care?
Well, Steve, that's an excellent idea that you and I have advocated for a while. People can only buy health insurance from companies that are basically licensed in their state, and that creates single state oligopolies of insurance companies where it's not very competitive. If I could buy health insurance anywhere in the country, the price would get more competitive. If I could use a health savings account to pay for an insurance premium, which they don't allow us to do now, small employers could put money in health savings account to help people pay for their own health insurance. If we did something about these frivolous, wasteful lawsuits, and if we did more to encourage the healthcare industry to disclose their prices so that consumers could shop more and they ask what things cost. We've seen that work, Steve, with health savings accounts where people are shopping with their own money. Prices come down relatively quickly when consumers are asking what things cost.
If all of these things are so important, Senator, why has the country voted the way it has? Why are Republicans at such a disadvantage now, being the minority?
Well, too many people are dependent on the government, and I think the last election, a lot of people voted with their hearts rather than their heads. And there's a lot of buyer's remorse out there now. That's what Saving Freedom is about, is to help people who want to know what's going on, take a look at what's happening in the Capitol, why it's happening, and what they can do about it. Right now, I think a lot of Americans don't understand the difference between the government running health care and free market health care. They think if it's free market that they won't have a chance to get health care. The fact is, the government's doing everything it can now to make it hard for an individual to own their own health insurance. If we just change the bad policies here, you'd find more and more Americans who have their health care. And the plan I introduced, the Heritage Foundation says that in 5 years, over 20 million Americans who don't have insurance would have it, and we could do it at a fraction of the cost of what Obama's talking about.
It's going to be interesting to watch how that takes place and what happens in November of 2010, Senator. Interesting book. It's called Saving Freedom. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Senator Jim DeMint from South Carolina.